Good afternoon. Today I got a special guest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow. Well, there's a lot to tell, but I'll keep it short. My name is Kevin Hooks, and most of you probably know me as an actor from a series called The White Shadow, which was many, many years ago, 47 to be exact. I started out as a child actor called Sounder, which was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, became a director after The White Shadow and a producer after that. And now I'm retired and enjoying myself.
Okay, on the lines of that, as a movie producer and a actor, how important was your grooming and your image during your career?
It's a very good question. I think that it was paramount. I think that for a black male in the entertainment industry, when I was breaking in, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me that were doing what I was doing, particularly when I started directing and producing. So it was really important for me to make sure that I looked my best. I dressed the part, and frequently I would go to work in a suit and a tie. And obviously, you can't wear a suit and a tie if your cut is not together.
Exactly.
So those things were very important to me, and I think that the perspective of you from other people, coworkers, and people that don't know you, and developing that kind of trust, I think it was very important to look good and to feel good as well. And I think grooming has a lot to do with that.
Okay, on the premise, as a barber myself, what would you tell other barbers as far as uh, how you went about choosing your barbers and why?
I think the most important thing for me, obviously, is what the cut looks like, what the execution of the cut. My hair grows in many different directions, particularly at the crown, and so
Right.
it's very important. I have walked out of barbershops and gone home and looked in the mirror and just was totally disappointed because that area of my head wasn't really paid attention to with the kind of detail that I would like. So I think that you want to make sure that you're going to get a cut by a competent, smart, intelligent, accomplished barber. And number two, I think that when you go into a barbershop, you don't want to bounce around to different barbershops every 2 weeks when you get your haircut. You want to find somebody that you can trust. And I think that's the second thing that is super important for me is that I am able to go into a barbershop and sit in a chair and relax. I don't want to feel like I'm nervous. I don't want the barber to feel nervous. I want us to be able to coexist for that, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, in a way that makes us comfortable and I can leave with I can be there with the knowledge that this person is somebody I can trust.
Gotcha. Now that you're retired, is there any changes in the way that you choose your barber?
Um, yes and no. I think that from a personal standpoint, I've always chosen barbers based upon the criteria that I just talked about. I think as a producer and as a director, in the work environment, I had to hire barbers not just for myself, but I had to hire barbers that would be able to take care of the entire cast. And so those casts were pretty diverse most of the time. And so the barbers had to really know how to cut different types and styles of hair. And so that was really important. But from a personal standpoint, it's never really changed. I think, to look your best and feel your best, you have to have a barber who can do that for you. And that's always been important to me. When I was a kid, actually, I lived over a barber shop. And so I got to know the head barber, the guy that owned it.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because in our living room, there was a door that went straight into the shop, which of course we didn't use because, but I would I would open the blinds that were on the window there, and I'd look in the barber shop, and I would see different,
Yeah.
barbers in there and different clients getting a haircut. And I was always fascinated by barbershops, particularly that one, because, you could tell that there were relationships being built. You could tell that there was trust there, that the dialogue between the barbers and the clients
Hmm.
were things that were being discussed that wouldn't be discussed in other places of business. You wouldn't go to the corner store or the corner market and
Yeah.
have the same conversation that you would have in the barbershop.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I also saw that because my grandmother was a beautician. She had her own shop. So I kind of grew up.
Around it.
Her shop was in our basement. And then when we moved from her place, we moved into a house that had a barber shop. So I saw between the two,
Yeah.
it was all about hair. So it's always been very important to me.
What does the phrase "trust your barber" mean to you today?
Well, again, I think that, you know, as I've gotten older, you know, the phrase trust your barber has become a broader term.
Yeah.
When I was younger, it was about, I got to go in here and I got to get my hair cut because my mom said it's time for me to get my hair cut. And, you really didn't want to be there because as a young kid, you didn't have a lot to say to the barbers then.
Right.
They entertained you for a little bit, but it wasn't like man to man, heart to heart kind of
Hmm.
things. So, as I've gotten older, I think that the term trust has gone well beyond just the ability to cut hair.
Right.
For me, it's really about establishing a relationship and understanding each other on levels that go way beyond just cutting hair. And I think that's important because, you know, barbershops are sanctuaries. There's church, and there's barbershops,
Yeah.
and there's the one's a little more casual than the other one, but they kind of do the same thing and serve the same purpose. And so for me as an older person now, particularly
Hmm.
retired, which just means I'm old, um, I think that it's important to be able to go someplace and feel comfortable and feel like you can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, whether that's personal or just life in general.
Right.
That you're stepping into a sanctuary that is going to you're going to take more from it than what you brought to it.
Have you ever had an experience where the trust was broken between you and the barber?
Oh yeah, sure. When I got home and looked in the mirror and saw what had happened, and I was like, "What? Where'd this train wreck come from?"
Right.
So yeah, I think that's simply put, that's probably the best example of it. Is just not being able to. But I have to say that I've also been to barbershops where I've established trust. I remember once I was at a shop and I was in a small town in upstate New York, and I was staying with some in-laws, and I needed to get a haircut, and they said, "Oh, you should go see Frank over on Main Street," and so I went by there,
Yeah.
and Frank was there, black barber, really nice guy, probably 90 if he was a day. I mean, he had been around the block. And, we had a really great chat about his experiences in life and, what he lived through. And it was fascinating. It was amazing. Um, Not the best haircut in the world, but I didn't mind it because I got so much from him, just from a personal standpoint,
Hmm.
just that relationship, that the cut, my hair is going to grow out. It'll be
Yeah.
fine in another week or two. But I really appreciated him in a different way. And that's what I mean about barbershops and barbers and that experience is that, you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get a haircut,
Yeah.
but there's so much more available to be had in shops. And I've always enjoyed that.
So another one of my questions that I have to ask, like when you traveled, I know you've probably been well traveled. how do you choose barbershops, or do you get people's insight? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. How do I find barbershops when I travel? I think it's a lot easier in the United States. I can remember, because there are different types of barbershops in the
Yeah.
United States. They're in certain neighborhoods, certain communities that, well, if I go there, I will find a good barber. I
Right.
think, but when you get outside of the United States, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. And so, yeah, you have to be very resourceful. I think the internet has really helped out a lot
Right.
with that because it can guide you, particularly the comments. You have to read the comments and see, like, oh, okay. And I remember one time I was in Prague,
Hmm.
and I tried to get a haircut. I stayed away from it for the longest time, and then it just got to be to the point where I had to get a haircut.
Right.
And I went on the internet and went to a place, but I found out in the comments section
Hmm.
that there was a black barber at this place. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't know how many barbershops I'm going to find a black barber in Prague. I went in there, met the guy, and he was super cool. And he cut me, and it was great. It was very interesting, though, because he was black, but he wasn't American. And so there was still
Yeah, that.
this communication gap that we had,
Hmm.
but we connected because, again, the experience bonds people and brings them together, even if it's just for a few short minutes. Um, there's always that bond.
Yeah.
And so, again, the experiences you have in a barbershop can be really rich if you trust where you are and you're comfortable in the setting that you're in.
Okay. Well, my final question. If you finish this sentence, how would you finish it? Barber I trust is someone who.
A barber I trust is someone who could also be a friend. I think that that's the best way that I could look at it. And there are a number of barbers, not many, that I've had over the years who have become friends, and that really brings great joy to me because, again, it's a relationship that starts in a barber's chair, but it's boundless and endless if you do build that trust between the two people. And you know, listen, there are just so many more things that can happen, but I think that if the barber client relationship builds into something more than that, that speaks volumes as to what what the depth and meaning of that relationship really is.
That's great.
Something. All right.